So there's two ways to classify cooperatives. Firstly, by ownership structure, and then by the industry in which they operate. So first we're going to look at the ownership structure. So in terms of ownership structure, there's worker co-ops, consumer, producer, multi-stakeholder, and nonprofit. So worker co-ops, they're owned by the employees, but not everyone who works in a co-op has to be a member or owner. So workers are required, if they're members, to purchase a share in the cooperative. Now sometimes this could be prohibitive, but mostly it's reasonably priced. The profits are shared with the workers in relation to the hours that they work. And the workers develop governance skills, and they have control over their workplaces. So just some examples here. I'm not going to read them all off, but you can see throughout Canada there's quite a number of worker co-ops. So a little closer to home you see Just Us Coffee Roasters, that's a co-op. And of course Co-op Taxi, the name is a giveaway on Prince Edward Island. And there's lots of cycling type of co-ops as well. So when you're looking at consumer co-ops are owned by the customers, and they sell products and services to their members. And patronage dividends, if they are given, are issued proportionate to the volume of purchases made. So in terms of consumer co-ops in Canada, all credit unions are considered to be consumer co-ops. Others include Federated Cooperative in Western Canada and the Cooperators Insurance Company. So producer co-ops, these are owned by the producers, such as farmers, fishers, woodlot owners. Members produce the goods and sell them to the co-op. So the co-op would then package, process, market, and resell the goods, and also provide supplies and services to the members. Then the members receive patronage dividends proportionate to the business conducted with the co-op. So this is really helpful for, farmers. For example, they would just have to really focus on their core competency, which is farming, and then they would sell their product to the co-op, who would then take care of all the packaging and marketing and getting, say, the produce out to various stores and supermarkets. Another type of producer co-op, which is more reflective, I guess, of the modern age we live in now, they're called platform co-ops. So platform co-ops use digital platforms to allow individuals to sell a product or service by attaining scale, such as a collectively owned platform. Think about Uber. Now Uber is not a co-op, but I'm just trying to give you this as an example. If Uber had been owned by its drivers, this is how it would be reflected. And you certainly see a lot of cooperatives in tourism, transportation, labor, and photography. So a lot of the photos, these Stocksy and stock photos, Stocksy is actually a cooperative. So the photographers would have their work taken care of by Stocksy, so whenever somebody uses an image, then the photographer would get paid. So some examples of producer co-ops. You have the Nova Scotia Christmas Tree. I thought that was interesting, cooperative. In Ontario, there's Gayleaf Foods, which is a huge cooperative. You have Fisheries Co-op in Cape Breton, and so on. Finally, there's the multi-stakeholder cooperative. So here, when you're looking at a multi-stakeholder, it includes all the stakeholders, workers, consumers, producers, and the community. So everyone is involved in the co-op. So some examples of multi-stakeholder cooperatives. It could have, for example, a healthcare co-op. is an example of a multi-stakeholder co-op because they provide good jobs for the workers, but then they also provide services to the elderly, to patients, to doctors. Doctors and provincial authorities could all be members. Another example is a multi-stakeholder food store would also provide good jobs, but then it would help the producers, the farmers, sell their produce, and it provides fresh local produce to the community. So multi-stakeholders are not in every province. It's not that they're restricted, but they just don't operate in every province, but they're very popular in Quebec. So a not-for-profit co-op, this means that any surplus is reinvested in the organization and is not distributed to members. These co-ops don't pay income tax and the members don't own the assets. So a not-for-profit co-op is really formed to address some broad community issues such as housing and daycare. So you have in Toronto the St. Lawrence Cooperative Daycare. In Calgary you have the Housing Cooperative. So I mentioned at the beginning of the module that there's two ways to categorize the co-op. So one was by the ownership categories. The other way is by industry. So you have co-ops operating in every industry: financial, housing, technology, food, healthcare, forestry, dairy, funeral services, media, and entertainment. So there's several short videos in this module, like less than 5 minutes each, and it's really important to view the videos and read the notes because it really helps enhance your understanding of cooperatives. So refer to the lecture notes to get those links. So the discussion board question for Module 4 is, of the co-op types and examples provided in the module, which one would be most useful in your life to meet any of your current needs? For example, if you find your neighborhood is lacking good food options, a grocery co-op store could be useful to meet that. If you have trouble finding meaningful work that aligns to your personal goals, perhaps a worker co-op would be useful. So refer to at least 2 of the assigned videos to illustrate your points. And that concludes Module 4.